Each year, obviously, we like to do this. I certainly like to do this because I think it's important to be as transparent as possible with our residents, and the best way of doing that is standing up and really talking about what the plans are for the coming year and talk about what are some of the things that we're able to accomplish in the past year, and just kind of maybe have a little bit of a overview of where the town's going, and maybe explain some of the reasons why we're doing some of the things we're doing. I wanted tonight to talk on a few key issues, economic development being one of them, budget, code review, and technology and infrastructure, to name the most important. As most of you know, over the past 10 years, the town of Glenville has benefited from a balanced, controlled economic development growth that has helped us to expand our tax base, bring additional amenities into our town, and has brought new jobs to our residents. Over the years, we've worked in partnership with private developers, landowners, government agencies, each to clean up contaminated properties, fill empty buildings and lots, and beautify our commercial corridors. All of this has led to a revitalized community that makes Glenville a great place to work, live, and play. Our investments in town center have spurred millions of dollars of additional investments by private companies. The lights, the banners, the sidewalks, and yes, the clock have all defined our commercial corridor here in town center and have created a destination, unquestionably, where businesses want to locate. Simply put, making investments in our commercial corridors drives economic development and it builds our tax base. This past week, we announced that Five Guys is coming to town center, and that is only the latest of many businesses that want to locate in Glenville. Five Guys represents the last empty space in town center. When I and Gina and some other members from the town board 10 years ago came into office, town center was empty and dark. It is now lit, it's vibrant, and it is full, and we're very proud of that. We also finally were successful, after 3 years, of getting National Grid to remove those ugly utility poles as part of our continued beautification effort. And we're currently working with Metroplex to bring a defined and focal point to our town center at that corner. With town center just about complete, there are other areas that we need to look. Freeman's Bridge Road is first among them. Over the last 2 years, the town has received state grants to study the redevelopment of Freeman's Bridge Road. The first grant studied the complete streets concept, and the second was to help the waterfront revitalization of Lower Freeman's Bridge Road. Among the recommendations are pedestrian-friendly paths, traffic calming elements, beautification, and creating a sense of community identity. It sounds familiar. They're recommending what we did in town center, we duplicate on Freeman's Bridge Road. This year, we will advance our plans to redevelop that corridor and work with Metroplex and the state to bring the necessary funding needed to make Freeman's all that it can be as a commercial corridor. Second, and Councilman Galuski touched on this a minute ago, and I see the chairman of the committee, Jim Martin, is here, and I want to thank Jim for all his leadership on this. The town board created a code review committee. Recently, under Jim's leadership as councilman, the town of Glenville undertook a 3-year process to update its master plan, which was last written in 1991. In that process, we discovered various codes that were out of date or not in line with the updated vision for the town. As I said, the board created this codes committee and is working to update the town codes as we speak. Some areas of study are an overlay district for Freeman's Bridge Road, new land use schedule, and updates to the sign code. And we thank Jim and the councilman for their work on that. I think one of the most exciting projects this year in Glenville is going to be in cheese. As you all know, Belgioso cheese. It took me a while to get that right. Belgioso cheese made a $25 million commitment to this town last year. I'm told by Ray Gillen at Metroplex that this will be the year that they break ground and build their plant, and that will bring 50 new jobs to our town residents and expanded tax base. But it isn't all about economic development in Glenville. Glenville has a rich and proud history. It's this administration's policy to promote, present, and celebrate our great culture and heritage. This is what makes the community more livable, a shared experience and memory. Glenville has so much to offer its residents, whether it's the great museums like ESAM, and Peter, that was actually in the text. I'm not doing it just because you're here. Great museums like ESAM, community events like Oktoberfest, which is run by our good friend Dave Hennell here, or fantastic parks like Melwick, Anderson, and Indian Meadows. Our residents can celebrate Glenville. In the next year, we will be celebrating our 200th anniversary as a town. And this year, we will spend time planning for that celebration. In 2020, we will celebrate our bicentennial through year-long events that will highlight the town's diversity while celebrating its unity. And it will include parades and picnics, a learning series, and will include 2 signature events. We're looking for the community, you folks here, to come together and help us celebrate this important milestone. Our bicentennial in 2020 can be a great community effort if we all come together. I spoke a minute about our parks. Over the many years, the town has invested heavily in our park system. We added a new park, Anderson Park, which houses our dog park. We added an outdoor fitness park in Indian Meadows and expanded Melwick to add fields and other amenities. We expanded our park trail and connected Indian Meadows and Anderson Park that features a 3.5-mile trail called the Greenway Trail. We also added an additional 1/3 mile trail known as the Lewis Trail that connects Indian Meadows with the East Glenville Fire Department and will give us better access for EMS response within that park. And lastly, we combined exercise and education by installing a story trail that allows children to walk the trail while reading portions of a story. We aptly called it the Story Trail. Not creative that day, but as we move forward, we will complete the additions at Melwick Park by building a new pavilion, playground, bathrooms, and concession stands for the sports teams and others who use our fields. They will represent $560,000 in additional investments on top of the $576,000 we made in 2018, which was funded in part by state grants. This will continue to provide more park services to our growing town and finally develop the park into a regional riverfront asset. All total, we invested over $1.4 million in just that one park over the 2 years. Some of it, as I said, was state money. Other plans include the demolition of Anderson House and shoring up the barn, where we will host, under the leadership of Deputy Supervisor Gina Workowski, a community garden initiative that she's been working on, and we're looking forward to having that hopefully this spring. It's clear that over the years our parks have grown, and we must adapt to that growth. How we financed and managed the parks yesterday will not meet the challenges and growth of today or tomorrow. That's why I'm asking the Park Planning Commission to draft a comprehensive plan that has short, intermediate, and long-term plans, and I'm asking them to draft a town management and, most importantly, park funding plan. And tonight, I renew my call, as I did in my budget message, to create a dedicated parks department for the first time in the town's history. We focused on our sidewalks and pedestrian trails. Over the years, the town has invested heavily in making the community a walkable town. We've added miles of pedestrian-friendly paths, and we will add even more in 2019. As many of you know, our vision is clear. It's to connect our neighborhoods to our commercial corridors to our parks, and we can achieve this. The next phase in that connection is the Glen Ridge Path, which will finally be completed this year to connect Woodhaven to town center. We'll also continue to seek partners to help fund the riverfront path that links a business corridor and a residential corridor in Glenville to a park in Scotia. And it also, that same path, links the Umpire Trail in Schenectady into one big loop. It's the missing link that needs to be funded by the county, the state, and the town to make that happen. This year, through the state grant, we will hire an engineer to plan a town-wide pedestrian loop that will finally help us achieve this goal. And let me say for too long, and I know folks on this board agree, the students of both the Scotia-Glenville District and the Burton Hills District have not had a safe way to school. We will ensure this year that walking paths get done in both districts, connecting the high schools and the middle schools, that will give our students in both those districts a safe passage between their schools. I've been working with Metroplex on this, we've been working with the school districts on this, and I believe wholeheartedly this year we can get that done. Yates Mansion is another area that we've been busy at work. Restoration efforts are underway at the historic Yates Mansion. Last year we accomplished much. We cleaned up the property, we started the demolition of the interior, we removed the non-historic part of the exterior, and we were successful at getting the home placed on the State Historic Registry. We're currently waiting to hear from the National Registry. And unfortunately, the government shutdown has impacted that. We have begun the research into the family, and we're starting to get a better understanding of the home, the property, and the Yates family. This will ultimately serve as the town's history and cultural center, and it will house our archives. Our 2019 plans include the continued renovation of the mansion and further exploration of the recently uncovered foundation next to the main part of the house. We recently uncovered a foundation that is next to the main house, which is very interesting to us. But our immediate next steps include the replacement of the home's mechanical systems. Speaking of replacement of structures, that brings us to Town Hall and our Senior Center. For too long, we've been talking about the problems that we face with space. Our current Town Hall is clearly inadequate, outdated, and does not meet our needs. This year, we will have a clear way forward. We will finally make a decision, one way or the other, which will either result in siting and building a new Town Hall, or we will begin the large task of renovations to this current building. A recent study, however, indicated that the work necessary on this current Town Hall to meet all the needs we would need, that we are asking for, were about $6 million. That seems imprudent and too much money to spend on a building that has so many structural issues as an old movie theater. Therefore, building on our grant of $1.5 million from the state to rehab our police department, we are currently exploring our options for a new facility that will improve safety and increase efficiency in our operations. As part of this effort to improve efficiency and provide our residents and employees with a state-of-the-art facility, we will continue to work to include the Senior Center in these redevelopment plans. In order to continue meeting the needs of our active seniors, we need to expand the facility to help us offer new programming and welcome a growing population into that center. And this year I'm also dedicated to completing our work on the Police Training Center. The past year we were able to secure funding for a joint police and fire training center. And after various issues, the project was never able to get off the ground in 2018. But in 2019, we are committed to providing our officers with a training facility that includes a dedicated gun range for them, and we will continue to work with our fire departments on siting a training center that will assist in their needs. In today's day and age, the training the employees require and the investment that employers need to make in their employees is large. We train our employees on workplace violence and sexual harassment and a whole variety of bloodborne pathogens and a whole variety of other things. We give our employees a gun and we ask them to protect us. I am committed to making sure that they have the training they need to do their job the best way they can. And that will happen in 2019. As far as infrastructure and technology, last year we made significant investments in technology upgrades. In 2018, we converted nearly 5,000 residential meters to automatic read meters, making billing the water usage easier, more accurate, more efficient, and less costly. We will finish that job in 2019 by converting the 400 residential meters that are left to be done before we address the large commercial meters. They will be last. In 2018, our comptroller, Jason Cuthbert, began utilizing a new financial software system which will be rolled out to the town departments in 2019. The new system will allow for better real-time tracking of all town revenue and expenses and will be utilized for an easier budget process. We'll also continue to work toward implementing our new codes and permitting software, including the capability to utilize iPads in the field for code enforcement, building assessment, and building inspections. Working with the EIG committee, we have researched certain anti-idling technology. Through the use of this town's GPS, we are able to effectively analyze idling patterns and town vehicle use. With this technology, we will implement a pilot program to test the anti-idling systems on certain vehicles within the fleet to ascertain the savings we may be able to achieve with these units. And as many of you know, we've worked closely with the county to help site large-scale solar projects on town-owned property. We anticipate that 2019 we will have 2 sites, one at our town-owned landfill that is now defunct, and the other at the town's water plant, that will help cut the town's dependency on non-renewable energy and help reduce our energy costs. We will do this by also taking great efforts to reduce the physical impacts on any view sheds and ensure that these solar farms are not intrusive in any way to the community. And on infrastructure, lastly, I'm proud that benefiting from the grant provided by Senator Farley, we upgraded our water plant to better ensure the security of our water supply through these upgrades to our water plant in 2018, which includes raising the wellheads, building berms, enclosing them in structures, replacing old fencing, all things to make sure that we protect our water supply from potential flooding and make sure that our most important resource is protected for our residents. On the budget, some have doubted our fiscal philosophy of the past decade. The hard choices that we made, some of the cuts, the reorganization, the tight budgets, and even some of the levy increases. But 10 years later, the results are indisputable. The town has the lowest tax rate in the county. It has the smallest budgets of the major towns. We operate with the fewest employees and are the only municipality not to ever employ gimmicks such as trash or leaf fees, plunder its fund balance, or run up debt to meet obligations. In fact, we have cut our debt. We've protected our fund balance, and we have seen our credit rating increase while continuing the investments in our town, and we never, ever broke the tax cap. After 10 years of this sure and steady approach, we are stronger, we are more stable, and we are ready to meet the needs of the next 10 years with little or no impact to our taxpayers. We achieve this with no additional sources of revenue being shared by the county, like the benefit that they and the city get from increased sales tax revenue, or the magic of the casino revenue that flows entirely, almost entirely, into those 2 entities alone. Our philosophy of fiscal restraint works, and it is based on 3 key principles. 1, reduce the use of fund balance. Over the past 9 years, we've reduced the allocation of fund balance by $1 million a year, down from $1.4 million to under $340,000 in this budget. That's a reduction of 75%. Now, I know people tell me all the time, fund balance is boring. Nobody wants to talk about it. But it's one of those unsexy things that have to get done in order to make sure that your town is fiscally sound. It may be a difficult concept to grasp, but it's simple. An over-reliance on your fund balance is a dangerous practice that can have a terrible impact on the taxpayers. It's like paying your credit card bills with your 401 savings account. Eventually you're out of money. And when you're out of money, then you would have to raise revenue to meet your operating obligations. In town government speak, raising revenue, especially in a county that doesn't share sales tax, means more property tax. This board has made sure that we're going to protect our residents against that. The second principle is reducing debt. Over the past 9 years, we've reduced our debt from $23 million to $13 million. That's a $10 million reduction in debt. This has saved us a tremendous amount of finance charges. In fact, Jason shared this with me and I was surprised. Since 2009, we have reduced our finance costs by 67%, or by $500,000 per year over almost the last decade. Our finance payments have dropped from $800,000 in a budget line in 2009 to just $270,000 in 2018. We went from an $800,000 cost line to $270,000 line. That's significant savings for our town and our residents. The third element is to build the capital reserve fund. Thanks to our prudent fiscal management, we built up our reserve accounts to protect the residents from sudden costs of emergencies and or the ongoing need to invest in our town's infrastructure. In fact, by protecting the fund balance and by cutting our debt, we're able for the first time create a capital reserve fund that has now grown to $3.26 million. Our debt reserve fund, first time we've ever created that, has grown to $2.67 million. This means that we can meet our obligations of investing in infrastructure, in capital expenses, and paying down our debt without impacting our residents' tax liability. But more can be done to better protect our taxpayers, and they include the need, once again, to increase the county's share of sales tax revenue to the towns. From 2003 to 2017, our share of sales tax revenue grew by only 11%, or $275,000 over the decade, 14 years, I'm sorry. During that same time, during that same 14-year time, the county share grew by 83%. Ours went up 11, theirs went up 83%. Their share grew from $37 million to $67 million. That equates to us, if you divide it out, we roughly get about $20,000 if you divide that 14 years out. $20,000 per year of new sales tax revenue. The county keeps $2.2 million. They get $2.2 million a year, we get $20,000 a year. That means for every new sales tax dollar that is generated by commercial growth, the county only shares less than 1 penny of that dollar with the town. That leaves you, the property taxpayer, holding the bill, and it shifts the burden to the residents of the towns. It is not moral, it is not fair, and it needs to change. We will continue to call on the county to do the right thing in 2019. On that note, it's been our policy to continue the tradition of delivering the lowest possible taxes to help ease the burden of our residents. And we've done this by cutting costs, expanding our tax base, and making strategic investments without depending on more debt. Still yet, residents struggle with the constant increase of property taxes. Although the town's portion of your annual tax bill is only 10 cents on every dollar you pay annually, it is still our job and still our commitment to mitigate any potential increases. We are committed to staying under the tax cap, and I'm proud once again to say we are the lowest taxed municipality in Schenectady County. And I renew my pledge not to break that tax cap as long as I remain supervisor. Lastly, I want to just take a moment to thank our employees. Many of them are here tonight. We ended 2018 with 2 of our 3 labor contracts settled, and both contracts offer the town significant operational efficiencies and significant help dealing with the growing cost of health insurance. Both the PBA and the highway contracts gave the town stability since they are both 5-year arrangements. We are at terms with CSCA, and we hope to ratify that agreement at the next board meeting. That agreement also provides those same elements of efficiency, operational efficiencies, and help with health insurance costs. And I think that we all, the board and the employees, have worked hard and we've worked together to make this happen. Within a few weeks, we will have something that I have not had as my term as supervisor. All labor contracts settled for the 5-year term. And I appreciate all the work that they've done, the folks from the different units have done to make that happen. I also want to acknowledge the significant investment the town and this board has made in our labor force. With a growing town comes growing needs, and our employees have borne the brunt of that burden. To help them over the past 2 years, we've added many positions. 2 police officers have been added, 2 additional police officers have been added, 1.5 laborers in highway have been added, an extra code enforcer, and a new maintenance worker in the sewer department have all been added to the budget. And they were absorbed in the 2018 and the 2019 budgets. And this will help us continue to deliver the stellar service we've always provided our residents. As we all prepare for the new year, I want to thank our employees and our volunteers for all the service to our residents, and I look forward to our continued work together. The town is certainly in a very strong position with a very bright future, and I look forward to our continued work. And I thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you very much.